Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's Natalie. I have a Prismacolor colored image today. This is from Copictopia Creative. It is part of the new release, but I'm just loving it. So it's just cute. You can see here my hair combination is dark brown, chocolate, and beige. I'm not worrying about blending it in or anything because hair has a lot of highlights and lowlights. And at the base of where it hits the skull, it's going to be a little bit darker, generally speaking. Usually a little bit lighter. I mean, the fringe, or what is it, you Americans call it bangs. That is going to be a little bit darker, but generally speaking, the longer parts down the bottom of the hair is going to be a little bit lighter because, you know, it's the oldest. So the sun bleaches it out. So this image, this stamp set is called Floundering Around. It is, as I said, out of the new release from Copictopia Creative. And I will link down below to that. I will also leave a link down to the blog so you can see some of the details because, spoiler alert, I'm going to put a little bit of Stardust stickles and it's going to be a little bit harder to see it like on the photos. So you should see it a lot better in the blog post. I'll have some close-up photos of that for you. What's happening? What is happening? When you see this, I am going to be on a houseboat, which is something a little bit new for me, a little bit different. I have been trying to get my parents and us on a houseboat for quite a few years, actually, but it just never really happened for one reason or another. And 12 months ago, it's literally like we've had the booking for 12 months. We decided to do it. And one of my sister-in-laws is coming and her husband. It is a kid-free, which I've only just found out. None of my children are going. I say children, but, you know, they're manlings. But my niece, who is only 12, she was going, but now she's decided that she doesn't want to miss out on school, which is really cool because she's in year 7 and she's a smart little cookie and she does not want to miss out on that, so she must be staying at some friend's place for the week, which is very nice friends. But so it means we didn't have to have a full cabin houseboat, but we do, and we pretty much have like all down the bottom, and then the top has got a spa, so it's cool. I have been on a houseboat once before, but we'll come back to that in a minute. You can see my combinations here for my skin. I'm still really playing around with different combinations and trying to, if you've been on my channel for a little while, I have said previously that I'd really like to get better at my coloring with pencils. I've got a few bits and pieces actually because I sometimes teach. So you don't need all these pencils. Stick with Prismacolors or stick with polychromos or stick with one of the other ones and just get better at that. But sometimes I teach like coloring, like 3 color combo sort of thing with, you know, giving you 3 different colors and you put together some cards. So it can be a little bit harder if everyone's trying to use the same pencil, you know. But I don't think it's too bad. Her skin looks a little bit, in the video, she looks a little bit yellow, but it's not that much. So I've got dark umber, beige, sienna, peach, beige, eggshell, and cream. Just thinking about my shadows where there might be at least a tiny bit. I'm going to give her a little bit of a cleavage. You don't need to, obviously, but I thought that adding that little bit of detail was good. In the palm of her hand, because she's got her hand up, she's almost doing a Star Trek Viking? No, it's not Viking. Vulcan. My father would be unimpressed. Vulcan greeting. But underneath her neck would be a little bit darker. Behind her arm that is up would be a little bit darker because it would be throwing a bit of shadow. I'm sort of got a right shadow, like a high right shadow. So her arm closest to her body is going to have a little bit. You can see there I've added a little bit more the shadow on the left-hand side again, and we're just blending that out. So I have been on a houseboat once before, many, many moons ago. I was part of a youth group, and we hired 2 or 3. I can't remember. I know there was 2, definitely 2, but I can't remember there was 3 houseboats, and we went out onto Lake Eildon, which is just a water catchment area. Interesting piece of thing. There's actually houses at the bottom of Lake Eildon. It was flooded many, many moons ago, and if it gets really low, you actually can see the top of the houses, which I have seen. But there's lots of tree branches and that sort of stuff everywhere. This is my yellow combination. Now on her brassiere, clamshell brassiere, I have just tried to make them a little bit rounded. So in the center would have a little bit of shadow around the outer edge. So it's just giving it an impression of being a little bit rounded. On that down here where I'm coloring now, it's going to be a little bit darker in the center there. It's sort of giving the impression, not that she has legs, but you know what I mean? Like the impression that she has legs underneath there. That's basically what I'm going to do. Is it strictly true? I don't know, but you know. This I've got a interesting sense of humor, I think, sometimes. Because mermaids aren't real, but you know. Anyway, I digress. I have black, dark brown, chocolate, goldenrod, yellow ochre, jasmine, and white. These colors I'm also going to do with my little flounders here. This one I'm going to color a little bit different from the other one. This one is going to be my usual thing of darkest down to lightest, which does mean that the light color will drag out those darker colors. So the dark brown and the little bit of black. So he's a little bit more a browny yellow than the other counterpart. My other little flounder is going to be working from lightest up to darkest. So the lighter color, as I said, is not going to pull out the brown. So he is going to be a little bit brighter. You can't tell too much, but it was just a little bit of an experiment to see what happens. Sorry, this is a little bit high as I'm blending it in. The white is mostly used you could use it as a highlight, but in this sort of case, I'm just using it to blend in basically all my colors. You can obviously use like Gamsol. I know people that use odorless solvents. Odorless solvents. But I honestly quite like just the whole fact of the pencil, that it's pencil. It's different. I do a lot of full-on blending with my Copics. I find that I'm a lot lighter hand in the sense because, they can break and everything else if you put too much pressure on it. but I just find that I'm not as heavy-handed because you have such a fine little point. So I'm trying not to break the tip. Whereas with Copics, I am very heavy-handed because the brush tip is very flexible. Let's get back to the houseboat. So we had that. The then ex-boyfriend came out and picked me up because I actually had to work. And we actually have photos of my husband and I. He's actually sitting behind me, but neither one of us can remember that the other one was there. And then we finally met, and finally, after a little while, finally decided to start dating. And 3 months later, we were engaged. So I had to introduce my parents to I got interrupted now. I don't know where I was up to. I know we were talking about a houseboat, but meeting my parents. Anyway, 24 years married later, then we're still together, obviously. My colour, my green combination, I will add the chocolate that I've clearly spelt wrong in a little bit because I decided I wanted a bit of variation, to a little bit more depth to the colour. So you can see here that I'm trying to have a little in-depth in her lap. I'm also going to, it's like her flipper is, fin, whatever you want to call it, is a little bit bent backwards, like when we sit on our legs. And so that's going to have a little bit of shadow. And this is basically where I decided that I needed to have a little bit more depth because it's not showing up so much. So I'm going to put a little bit of chocolate brown underneath the bottom going up to sort of define that bend a little bit more, and also in her lap, and just blending that out a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit, I'm going to talk about it now, but we're going to see it in a little while. For something a little bit different, I used Stardust Stickles to have a little bit of interest. Oh yeah, I forgot her lips and her eyes. So that's the color for her lips and eyes. Something a little bit different. What I'm going to do is doing some slightly rounded but vertical-ish lines going up her legs and over her flipper, sort of to give it the illusion a little bit more that it is rounded. Let me just get the measurements for this for you. So this is 3 1/16 of an inch, or in Australian metric people, it is 7.8 centimeters. And then we have 12.2 centimeters. Now I'm going to struggle with this because I'm not too sure. Hang on. This is 4 by, I think, 12/16 or 13/16. It's the next line after 3/4. Sorry, but apart from the fact my numbers all rubbed out on my inches side. This is the crushed olive and tumble glass. I've basically done like soft lines going over that panel. So I was thinking with water, you have like the ripples of light, and they seem to sort of go, I mean, they can go up and down, but they ripple a little bit. So that was the thought behind it. I've raised up all these, including my sentiment, which is a fun little sentiment. It's all fun and games until someone loses a flounder. I just thought it was really fun. This is where I realized I hadn't colored my eyes. These flounders are going to be glued flat. Now she's clearly going off that panel. When I put this onto the card base, her hair is going to be off again a little bit. I'm going to raise this up, and I will put a tiny bit extra on her, behind her hair, just a little bit. just to support that hair and trim that off. You can see it's tiny little slither that we needed to trim off. Glossy accents on her eyes and a little bit in the center of her brassiere. This is where, so see, I'm sort of doing lines, but they're sort of curved around her body, around her flipper, fin, whatever you want to call it, and a little bit on the fish. Hopefully there will be more photos. You'll be able to see it a lot clearer on the blog, which I'll leave a link down below. So I hope you're well. That's it for me today. I hope that was at least amusing. Take care. Bye.